so impressed with all of the readers, contributors tonight. I think there's a couple of themes I've heard that I've enjoyed so much. The friendships that we speak of, the friendships now being made. So thank you, Ken, for bringing us all together tonight. And we are gathered here this evening. Yes, thank you. The reading I've chosen is from a new book that was published just 2025 by a friend of mine, Professor Joe Manzella, who I had the pleasure and honor of working with on part of this book, and I'll read what I wrote for his book. But just to give you an indication of who he is, my good friend Joseph C. Manzella, Professor Emeritus of Anthropology at Southern Connecticut State University. He's co-founder of the Anthropology Department. Actually, when I first met him, he was a member of the Journalism Department, and he moved over to start the Anthropology Department and served as its first chair. He's published several articles and 2 books on media and community in Indonesia, Kyrgyzstan, South Africa, Western Europe, Venezuela, and the United States. So in his book entitled Seeking Transcendence, The Quest for Spirituality in an Age of Detachment, it's a rather, it'll be utilized more probably in classroom settings, but it is a good read in terms of what topics we've even spoken of some this evening about the quest for spirituality in our age, which seems to be detached with people doing their own thing, perhaps on a phone, on a computer, or just not interacting one-to-one. And part of the beginning of his book what he speaks of throughout the book is the various ways people are choosing to seek spiritual dimensions in their life that might be unorthodox or not traditional. So the first chapter is transcendence. What that means is you've heard the phrase spiritual but not religious. So he speaks about that. He speaks in the second chapter, are there cults? C-U-L-T-X, cults. And that's where I find my writing for him was helpful there. The third chapter, evangelicals, politics and media. The fourth chapter, from east to west, the age of gurus. 5, indigenous spirituality. 6, the new age neo-pagan. 7, meditations in motion. 8, thin places of peace, alternative Christianity. Chapter 9 is pilgrimages and other spiritual journeys, and the epilogue, the threads. And I've been very curious with Joe as to when this book would come out, and as any of you authors might have had an editor on your back, so to speak. And when I get with him, sometimes he say, I've got to get this done, My editor really wants it done. And so finally, I congratulated him on getting this book, and I congratulate all of you who have had a book that has finally found its way to the editor and has it published. But so I'll read just briefly what I wrote for Joe during my time of campus ministry, not only at Southern Connecticut State University, but also my privilege to be at the University of Bridgeport during a very tumultuous time in the life of the university. You might remember many years ago now, it seems not that long ago, but it really was, that the university itself had tremendous trouble with the union, teachers union on strike. They went from a university of 10,500 students to down to 3,500. The university was about to close, but another group came in to purchase over 51% of the, took over 51% of the trustees. And that group was the Unification Church, known by many as called the Moonies. And so at that particular time, there was a lot of controversy. Some of the faculty didn't want to teach, they left. Some of the others were questioning, well, should we allow them to come in at all. So let me just read you what I wrote at that particular time for Joe about that experience. It was an interesting time. I did counsel quite a few staff folk who were dealing with the worries of the institution failing and losing their jobs. No one spoke of being in any way unable to do their job because of the unification vote. I was encouraged by the way the university maintained an openness to the Interfaith House, the Carstensen House, where office space was available on the first floor for the Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish community. I was very part-time, but I was present there more than the Jewish or Catholic chaplains. When they offered services in the Protestant chapel on the first floor, often the leader of the Unification Church student chaplain would come by. He had a separate off-campus housing, and office for the most part was not really visible to folk coming to the Interfaith House. He and I got along okay, and I learned from him the very unusual marriage and pre-marriage arrangements of the Unification Church. On the entire second floor, the Muslim Student Association had their office, prayer room, and special restroom accommodations. Again, to my knowledge, they were allowed freedom to meet and did so. And occasionally, folks on campus, that would be the security, staff, some faculty, came to me and spoke more nervously about the Muslim group than the Unification group. And I can say this through first-hand conversations. As far as the administration of the campus, one year I was asked to be the event advisor to the student council. I was also asked to dress up as Santa Claus for the president's open house. Dr. Richard L. Rubenstein, president of the campus, the University of Bridgeport at that time, was there. I also was present in the audience when Dr. Rubenstein introduced Sun Myung Moon to the campus community. I was invited and not compelled to go. I should mention the day that I took the stairs. That was the day that Sun Myung Moon and President Rubenstein were delayed as the elevator was stuck for a period of time. So all around the buildings were in decay. The faculty and staff morale was in the basement. And as long as the Unification Church was not disruptive to the educational mission, the University of Bridgeport somehow survived. There were students from over 60 countries, many just wanting an opportunity to be in the United States to study. As far as the Protestant ministry at the University of Bridgeport, my experience was one of a university facing financial disaster and having very little hope. The Unification Church, too, was facing a turning point, changing from a movement to an institutional endeavor, therefore purchasing newspapers, universities, and trying to garner a new image. I was allowed to be myself. I held Bible study, counseled students, staff, held chapel services, officiated a Protestant wedding on campus, offered prayers at students' funeral, offered invocational prayers at the Bridgeport Columbus Day Parade by invitation of the notorious mayor of the time, was present and offered benediction at graduation and at the School of Nursing. The board chair for Protestant ministry was Reverend Smallwood, who was very worried about the Unification Church taking over the chapel, and really was around a lot to protect it, if need be, right on campus. We did not have any incidents, as I recall, in which Reverend Smallwood's worries were validated. When I left that ministry, he filled right in and kept what was going alive. The book is not only a history of folk who have sought spiritual guidance and finding it in various ways, but I think it's also a testimony to the fact that we all have curiosity about others, that we may not know who they are and what they are. With Joe, I was privileged to be in various travel trips and seeking to understand more about those journeys of people in different places and different times, and how their spiritual journey connects with our journey. So that is what I was choosing to read tonight. Thank you.